To Share the Load by Sean Lansendorfer. Cheng Hu was crouched low, slinking down the hallway, when he heard a click. "Oh," was all he said as the blade whipped over his head. He felt the breeze and was very aware of how close a call that was. It seems they weren't kidding about there being traps. The moment reminded him quite clearly how in over his head he was. "Wow, I didn't expect this place to offer haircuts," he said to himself nervously, checking over what was left of his hat. Who would have thought monks would leave so nasty a surprise? The thief unraveled the scroll containing his orders and looked them over for the finer details. He was supposed to only step on certain tiles marked with the right character in the order of some such whatever. He hadn't been listening very intently when his partner explained it. The fellow claimed to have memorized the pattern, so it didn't seem necessary to pay too much attention. Cheng was lucky his partner had at least written it down before he died, or that's what the little drawings appeared to be. The thief damned his luck. The money was what he needed, and took up most of his attention. His woman deserved a certain quality of life, and this job was his way to ensure she would want for nothing. It had been a few months since he had last seen her. They had married in the spring, but he hadn't held on to her very long. It was an arranged match he had to honor, but other circumstances spurred his action. He had cut off his hair and donned simple robes the day he went out into the world to find his fortune. It was out in the wild country where he met an old man. The stranger had promised him riches. He was thinking of gold and jewels, but that was slowly revealed to be a fantasy. There was a body they had to track down, a monk who held a medallion necessary for the real treasure they were trying to find. Up to snow-capped mountains where your bones felt the chill, in a little shrine sealed by stone and ancient prayers, he helped the stranger carry the body out, but his friend had wasted away on the trip to this sacred place and died soon after. All Cheng could hope was that it wasn't contagious, but he had gone this far and couldn't stop now. It hadn't been easy. In fact, it was a nightmare more often than not. But the work he found before then wasn't much better. Medallion in hand, here he was acting on the last words of a dead man. It was strange. Cheng was usually so observant, but he had been off his game as of late. He hadn't noticed how run down the temple was, or the fact that there were battlements, or how there was a striking lack of monks but a surplus of bandits and mercenaries. The many banners hanging around the place and the fearsome tiger they carried had not yet registered in his mind as a point of concern. The thief was quick with assumptions, but usually had more information to work with. The scroll was suspiciously scant on intel, but did have a trap layout and several reminders of his ultimate objective. He was there to steal a golden statue of the Buddha, and so he just assumed monks were responsible. The bit of paper did not mention who he was to steal it from. He absent-mindedly took another step as he read about the trap placement and heard a telltale click. The stone dragon's head to his right spat a torrent of flame that turned his cheat sheet to ash and nearly cooked him. He shook his hands frantically to make sure they weren't on fire and took a hopping step back. Then came another click. A spiked gate at the end of the hall came screaming his way. Cheng turned to run, but knew there were only more traps waiting. The thief leapt and grabbed hold of the banner, pulling himself above the rushing wall of death just in time. There came a loud clank as the spiked apparatus reached its terminus, and slowly retracted by way of the pulley that had driven it forward. Cheng was up against the ceiling and slowly descended, hitching a ride further up the hall on the spiked wall. During the moment of leisure, the thief got a better look at the countless banners. The Black Tiger. Where have I seen that before? The realization dropped on him like a mountain. That was the symbol of the warlord Cao Shi. No wonder this job paid so well. It was suicide. It was no surprise now why his friend hadn't been more forthcoming with the information. In hindsight, trusting the sort you meet at a gambling den should have tipped him off. However, with this knowledge, other details came to light. This tunnel underneath the great temple led to a treasure room of legendary bounty. The warlord Cao Shi had chased out the holy men a decade ago with the help of some wizard, and was now terrorizing the neighboring villages and taxing the roads. using this monastery as his base of operations to raid and pillage. Every bit of his ill-gotten gains was stored here. The warlord was said to be a demon, as tall as he was wide and heartless, killing scores of men with one swing of his club, and ruling over the people like a god. But that wasn't Cheng's problem. He didn't live around here, and the gold he could get from selling that statue would buy his love years of comfort and easy living. Bai Mei deserved it, and was worth any risk. She was of fragile constitution, and too precious to live in poverty. He would make sure his beloved wouldn't have to. The thief was further down the hall, but had no way of knowing where to step. Speaking of which, he heard footfalls approaching. Cheng climbed up onto the rafters, letting the guards stroll past in a comical stutter step as they took the memorized path of safety. They were imposing fellows, wearing heavy armor and carrying glaives, while he had on furs and was armed with nothing but a staff. But a good thief never had to fight. The best could slip in and out without anyone being the wiser. Cheng wasn't exactly experienced in burglary, but maybe he had a secret talent for it. A fool could hope. He tried to watch where the guards stepped, but had missed a bit of it. What were the odds he would land on another trap first thing? Cheng climbed down and softly landed on the tiled floor, but had to react quickly as a line of spears shot out of the wall to his right. He leapt and occupied the space between the thrusting pole arms. He folded over the shaft of the weapon and slithered back to the floor. Maybe he should have paid a tad more attention, but it was too late now. He would just have to adapt. He heard the guards coming back his way. They were discussing something or other and didn't seem in any particular rush, but the dim tunnel was gradually being illuminated by their approaching torches. It was a bit of luck and the limit of his skill that allowed him to go unnoticed thus far, but the spears jutting out of the wall were a big giveaway that someone was here. There would be no hiding for long. Cheng mused. They had to remember the right path as they patrolled the halls to avoid traps. What a bother. And what of the cleaners? Do they just sweep around the pressure plates? He heard approaching footfalls. It was another patrol of guards. There was no time to hide and no point. So he stood and looked contemplative. They came upon him, nodding his head and rubbing his chin. "Who are you? What are you doing in here?" snapped the guard with his weapon ready. Me? You got a lot of nerve. I'm the trap inspector," said Cheng. "These are all out of date and need refurbishment. No one even set this one off." The guards looked at each other, and their weapons dipped a tad. One said, Trap inspector?" "That's right, trap inspector. I get paid a lot per hour. Who should I inform of my bill? I'm sure they'd love to hear how you two are distracting me. Might come out of your pay." The guards stood upright and bowed slightly. "Our apologies, sir." The other two guards came running up the ready, having to rush in but remain mindful of the safe course of travel, so their charge looked more silly than menacing. "Hey, stop right there." "What?" said Cheng. "Can't you see I'm busy?" The first two guards went to explaining things. "He's a trap inspector. He says there's something wrong with the traps we have here." The other two nodded along. "Oh, that explains the swinging blade we found down the way. We were about to report it." "The swinging blade is out too? Damn. Why didn't you say so sooner?" Cheng complained. "We have to check every one of these things now. You've already wasted enough of my time. Show me every other trap in this tunnel." Right, of course. Sorry, sir," said one of the guards with a bow. The group escorted Cheng to the end of the tunnel. The thief made a good show of looking bothered and judgmental while learning the pattern for his exit and rendering as many traps as possible inoperable. "All right, I see. I'm going to have to work through the night. Make sure no one bothers me," said Cheng. The guards meekly nodded and got out of his way. Cheng took a much-needed breath and wiped the sweat from his brow. How could that possibly have worked? He was dressed in ratty furs and sporting scruff and the grime of a week's travel. It's surprising they didn't sniff him out, come to think of it. Cheng wasn't one to overstay his welcome and moved along into the inner chambers. This was where the warlord kept his wives and concubines. The eunuchs here would not take his lie about being an inspector well. He slinked down the maze-like halls. There was no way to know which way to go or hint of progress down the immaculate gilded space. Cheng scowled as he stumbled upon the same paths after running into dead end after dead end. He squat and racked his brain. Had his friend told him about this? He stood and walked around, coming back to a familiar hallway. Out came a parade of ladies in fine dresses and veils from the far side. The eunuch leading them saw something and heard a door shut. Cheng had hastily entered the first room available. It was a hot spring leading into a private chamber. All the coverings were sheer. The open space was humid, with bubbling water and wisps of steam. Could he fit under that bucket? The eunuch entered and looked around, beginning to believe he imagined the disturbance, when there was nothing out of the ordinary to be seen. He gave the room one more look before leaving. Cheng rose from the scalding hot water and gasped for air. He crawled onto the cobblestone floor, but was not given a moment to rest. In came the wives, and they all prepared to bathe. "Get to scrubbing, ladies. You know the master likes his women clean before getting dirty," said the eunuch as he held open the door. Cheng shut his eyes and hid in the bedchamber. He was the loyal and devoted sort, and vowed only to ever lay eyes on his wife. And that didn't even happen yet, so he sure as hell wasn't going to peek now. He fumbled about the room to acquire of soft giggles and cutesy banter, tripping over things and running into walls. "What is that racket?" said the eunuch as he went to investigate. He was knocked out, dragged in, and propped up as if he were napping. Cheng stepped out and gestured for silence. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just here to steal a Buddha," he whispered. At least, that's what he would have said if he didn't get the wind knocked out of him from a crushing punch to the gut. He stumbled backwards and fell into the bed. Who knew a concubine packed that much power? The hit was bad enough, but his blood ran cold when he heard a boisterous voice.
"Ah, my lovelies. A wife for every day of the week. I feel bad I can't tend to each of you, but I must save myself for another kind of raiding."
You could hear the spittle in his laugh.
"Who's the lucky girl today?"
It was the warlord, Cao Shi, and he was stinking drunk. Cheng was still reeling from the blow, but forced himself into action. The thief scrambled. The warlord's step could be felt rumbling about the chamber. The man was a giant, with arms as big as his belly and a wild mess of a beard. He stumbled around, chasing his wives, who demurely evaded him and giggled. The man was too in his cups to catch any, and the crafty women had a wicked sense of humor. "Someone is waiting for you in the bedchamber, dear husband," one said, dodging the brute like a bullfighter. Cao Shi threw open the screen and gazed at the lovely creature waiting for him. Tall for a woman, wearing silk, her medium-length hair up in a messy bun, and a veil over her face. She had a staff and seemed to be either trying to look sexy or holding on for dear life. She was so alluring that the warlord failed to notice the unconscious eunuch in the corner.
"Oh, you must be new."
The warlord licked his lips and opened his robe as he approached, revealing his other war club. Cao Shi lifted the veil and saw her wide-eyed expression, but was denied even a glance of her face by her fan.
"Ho, ho, ho! You tease."
She backed away slowly, but the brute was quick when he needed to be, and this maiden hadn't the experience of the others in the art of evasion. The warlord got 2 hands full of her rear and was surprised.
My, have you been working out? Most women these days are so dainty, but you've got some meat on your bones."
"I have. Thanks for noticing," said Cheng as he lowered the fan and sucker-punched the brute. Cao Shi didn't even feel it. He laughed and gave Cheng a pat on the back that sent him stumbling away. This man was truly a demon and would break him in half. It was time for a new plan. He tucked and rolled over to a table and grabbed a bottle of wine. Cheng fetched a cup and got Cao Shi to sit on a cushion and let him serve some drinks.
"Oh, how nice. Usually it's right to business,"
said the warlord as he emptied his cup.
"I like this. It feels nice."
The thief poured another cup and was made to sit on the warlord's lap.
"What is the matter, dear? You look uncomfortable," said Cao Shi.
Cheng thought fast. What had Bai Mei always said? "Cramps," he answered. No man knew how they worked or what caused them. The thief had driven himself mad looking for a remedy. The warlord nodded along.
"Ah, I see."
He swallowed down his wine. The thief filled Cao Shi's cup again, and, as if it were instinct, the man downed it in one go, bottle after bottle until the warlord passed out. He must have drank a cask of wine by the end of it. Cheng stepped out into the spring and saw the host of wives laughing and laughing. He wanted to counter, ask about a certain womanly discomfort his beloved had mentioned, or perhaps ask for directions, but they laughed him right out of the room. He was out in the hall for about a second before a eunuch stopped him. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I'm the new cleaner for the next chamber. I'm here to sweep, as you can see," said Cheng, gesturing to his staff. Your broom is missing a head," said the eunuch with suspicion. "I only brought my broom handle, because I'm a professional. The employer has to supply me with the head of his choice," said Cheng dryly. "It'll be your head if the master finds you here," snapped the eunuch. "Then get me to my post," countered Cheng. The eunuch grumbled and led him through the maze of the second chamber and to the entrance of the third. It was an opulent, domed space, with grand statues and riches. This Cheng remembered. The place was guarded by the invisible threads of heaven, said to be so sharp that they cut through anything. Do you know where the threads are?" the thief asked. "What? Of course not. I work in the second chamber. Go talk to your supervisor." With that, the eunuch left in a huff. There was more work to do than usual, and his co-worker was nowhere to be found. He was not happy about it. Cheng scratched his head and thought. He looked at the gold and the jewels. That's what he was after. Something he could take home in his pockets for her. He could fill his bag and go, if not for those nagging thoughts. What if it wasn't enough? What if she expected more? He studied the statues and the markings from his position for a long while, and had become no wiser and no surer of how to proceed. The thief had a plan, and reached for a jade idol, but stopped and wagged his finger at the empty space, as if boasting that he wasn't so easily fooled. Cheng brought up his staff and waved it in front of the treasure, and watched as the wood became a good inch shorter. The thief sighed, as he looked from the cut end of his staff to the end of the massive chamber. He didn't have enough wood to work with to make it a quarter of the way. He sat and thought. I figure there wouldn't be any threads on the treasure. The thief waved his staff in gentle circles to see what was keeping him from hopping on the table. He was getting more subtle with his probing, and only cut a few notches in the wood after a while, instead of lopping off a good few slices like at the start. Cheng got on the first table with some careful maneuvering. There, among the jade statues and pieces of gold, silver, and copper, he crouched. The first step was a success, but there was no guarantee he even had the right of it. It would indeed hurt to try, but he couldn't sit there all night. Cheng carefully made his way across the 10-foot table, but the chamber stretched on for 10 times that. When he got to the first gap, he grabbed some of the coins and tossed them across to the other side. A good few of them ended up split in half, and he wasn't thin enough to slip through the gaps he had measured out. Cheng was so deep in thought that the voice shouting at him from across the room had startled him to the point of flailing. He yelped, nearly falling off the table, and was lucky not to have lost any fingers. "Hey, what the hell is the matter with you?" he yelled back. The man started closing the distance between them in a determined march, but soon had to account for the threads and proceeded to duck, shimmy, crawl, balance, hop, and cartwheel over. It took quite a while, and the fellow was winded by the time he got over. "What are you doing here? This is a restricted area." Cheng was still squatting on the edge of the table. "I was hired to inspect the Golden Buddha for its authenticity. They sell better if they are official." "Golden Buddha? We don't have one of those," he huffed. Cheng felt the truth was easier than lying this time. "Well, it's in a secret chamber. This medallion I've got around my neck can get me in. Every temple has a secret chamber for their Buddha." "So why are you on the table?" The thief's eyes shifted from one side to the other. He couldn't think of a good answer, so he decided to feign outrage. "You got a lot of nerve. I was waiting here all day. I got Buddhas to inspect all over the province, you know." The man was caught off guard and shrank at the outburst. Well, I wasn't told you were coming. One of the eunuchs told me there was a new sweeper coming, and I've been searching all over for him." "I don't need your excuses. I just need you to guide me over," said Cheng authoritatively. All right. Keep your pants on. You'll have to follow me carefully. I mean it. Do exactly as I do." With that, the supervisor waddled, hopped, shimmied, and even rolled toward the other side of the room. Cheng did his best and felt things were going well, but the threads were so sharp that he wouldn't know if he made a bad move until he saw his limb sliced off and lying on the floor. So, a Buddha inspector. Do you work with the temple? I can't imagine the monks are too keen to help the likes of Cao Shi. Well, warlords come and go, but the heavenly Buddha is eternal. It's good to keep stock of all the artifacts and make sure they're preserved. You can't have such works of art fall into ruin just because some brute or another is the current owner. It all comes around, you know? Cheng rambled. Huh. I never thought about that. It's a funny way to look at things. No one owns anything forever, or even at all. Wow, you monks sure are wise. Yeah, it's what we do. So, how much farther? It was a very extensive process getting to the end of the room, and an extensive effort to find what wall the medallion opened. Soon enough, all was revealed. The stone shifted, and a chamber that had not held a heartbeat in centuries opened. There were jars and scrolls and such, but over in an alcove was where the golden statue stood. Cheng was in awe. Securing this for his client would give him enough money to ensure Bai Mei never had to worry about anything again. She could live like the princess she always was, and it would be thanks to him. That would be the answer and soothe any fear or anxiety. The thief walked over and quickly learned he couldn't budge the damn thing, much less carry it out. Hell, that weighs a ton. What were they thinking? How did anyone even get it in here? Damn it! Cheng was trying to think of what to do. There was no way he could possibly move this thing alone. You got a cart or something? A cart? Why? The supervisor asked. I can't tell if it's in good shape with so little light. I need to inspect it in full sun, Cheng lied. Say, how'd they even get it in here with those threads? There's a tension release over here, said the supervisor. It's a strictly kept secret that only I know of. We haven't used it in a while, so give me a moment to remember. He turned and made the necessary movements to get to a hidden lever. I'll get some of the guards to help, and we'll get this wheeled out. I hope our statue gets good marks. The supervisor turned and took a step. Damn, I knew I was forgetting something, he said as his head slipped off his shoulders and his body dropped. Cheng stood and watched the whole thing happen. Oh, was all he said before the tirade of curses. Now he was trapped. He went through the stages of grief in quick succession, and made it back around to bargaining soon enough. He knelt before the Buddha and begged, Please, help me. I don't want to die here. Who will care for my wife? Hey, over here. Cheng lifted his head from the dusty floor where he was prostrating himself and looked around. Buddha? No, over here. The thief cautiously got to his feet, scanning the room for the source. In the corner. I'm over here. Cheng saw it then, a ceramic jar wrapped in prayer beads, with its top secured by a paper seal. He read the characters to himself. They were Taoist in origin. I can help you, said the voice in the jar. Cheng nervously tapped his finger against the stone. How can you help me? You're stuck in a pot. I know, fool, but if you let me out, I can help you. I'm very powerful and wise. If you were, you wouldn't be in a pot, Cheng countered. All right, wise guy, have fun dying here. I still might get out, but you'll still be locked up either way, so better sweeten the deal, Cheng argued. The pot was upset. You have a lot of nerve. I was giving you an out, and this is how you treat me? Yeah. Spare me the sanctimonious drivel of a demon locked in a pot. You did something to end up where you are, and there isn't a high horse around who would bear you. I want 3 wishes. 3 wishes? You got a lot of nerve. And where do you get off thinking you're better than me, you thief? And another thing. Her tone seemed to change after some thought. All right, you got a deal. He had expected a bit more haggling, but wasn't about to say no. Hold on. I'm not finished, said Cheng. No tricksy stuff. Fine, whatever. Let me out, said the voice. Cheng unbound the pot from the prayer beads and removed the seal. In a puff of purple vapor stood a silhouette of monstrous visage. The thief was thinking over his decision then, but when the smoke cleared, there stood the buxom shape of a woman. "Behold," she said, her animal ears perked, and 3 tails posing along with her. "It is I, Biyu, the Red Fox." "Ew," said Cheng, averting his eyes. "Have you no modesty? Where are the rest of your clothes?" Biyu hadn't seen that coming. Her introduction, ironically, fell flat. She deflated. Her charms hadn't worked on the monk who sealed her either. This ruffian didn't seem to be a holy man. She stood tall and barked out her counter. "What do you mean, ew? I'm gorgeous." "My Bai Mei is the only woman for me, and she doesn't look anything like you. Change into your true form before you make me sick," Cheng said with distaste. With a puff of smoke, the buxom woman was gone, and in her place was a small red fox with 3 tails. "There, happy?" "No," he answered. "I'm still underground with a demon and a Buddha that is too damn heavy, when all I want to be is near my beloved. So, let's get to granting some wishes." Biyu looked bashful. "Well, about that. I'm only a 3-tailed fox. I can't grant any wishes." Cheng bonked her on the head with his staff. "Then what the hell good are you?" "Ow, you bastard! I'm still powerful and can do you favors," she argued. "Can you lift a 1-ton Buddha?" "Oh, no." The normally polite fellow had lost his temper and did not feel this demon was worth pleasantries after such falsehood. Lying and thieving were so against his nature that it pained him, and that discomfort was boiling to the surface. "And you are wasting my time," Cheng snapped before changing his tune. "I bet you couldn't even pull the release lever to get us out of here." "Ha! That's nothing. I can slip right over there in no time." With that, Biyu strolled up to where the supervisor had died and pulled the secret lever. The deadly thread slackened and fell to the ground all across the chamber. She had done it. "See? No problem," Biyu boasted. Says the 2-tailed fox. She panicked and examined herself, finding everything as it should be. "That's a dirty trick." Cheng looked over the statue and plotted. "Hey, rat, can you shapeshift into anyone or just a floozy?" "Asshole, I can turn into anything." "Then turn into the supervisor and let's get a cart," he said with the wheels turning in his head. Biyu poofed into the guise of the deceased man. "Why him?" "He's got to order some burly fellows to lift up our solid gold paperweight and place it into the cart so we can pull the thing out of here." Simple as anything. The fox went along with it. To Cheng's surprise, the plan worked like a charm. Biyu played her part well, and they were halfway through the 2nd chamber with the prize before there was any trouble. A eunuch with his head wrapped stopped their progress, stepping out in front of them, demanding answers. "See here, no man is permitted on these premises without leave from our lord Cao Shi. What is the meaning of this racket?" Cheng covered up the contents of the cart with a large sheet before answering. "My apologies, good sir. We were just delivering melons, but rest assured, we will be out of your way in a moment." The 2 burly workers looked confused. "Melons?" "Melons," said the thief with certainty. "Speaking of which, yours looks worse for wear. Are you all right?" The eunuch looked embarrassed. Yes, I'm fine," he said while self-consciously checking his bandages. "I had fainted or something. It must have been a dizzy spell from the heat." He did not want to talk about it any more. "Move along. Get out of my sight before Cao Shi sees you." Cheng nodded and gestured for the cart to continue underway. He manipulated the situation perfectly, to his reckoning, though it didn't matter much. The horrendous lie worked on the eunuch he had knocked out previously for reasons of ego, but the other who entered the conversation had already recognized Cheng. "What is the broom jockey doing here?" one eunuch asked the other. His injured coworker turned with a nervous gasp. "Huh? I thought he was a melon transporter." He realized then how stupid it all sounded as he rubbed his aching head. "No, he's the new sweeper for the 3rd chamber," the eunuch answered. He turned to Cheng. "Where's your supervisor?" Biyu stepped in on cue and explained. "You are absolutely right, but he finished up, and I had some side jobs to do. I grow melons in my spare time, and we were taking them to the market." "Melons? We work underground. What sort of idiot tries to grow melons in the dark? Stop your lies and speak the truth. Tell me what you are doing this instant, or I'll call the guards," the eunuch shouted. Biyu slipped into the first door she could find and, after an audible poof, stepped out as the bandit chief, Cao Shi.
Ah, my melons. Wonderful. Let's get these outside and to the market.
She had never heard or seen the chief, so she was dressed in armor that covered her from head to toe and spoke in a booming voice that was still clearly feminine. The men bowed, cowed by the very idea of the warlord. The eunuch's voice shook with fear. My apologies, my lord. I did not mean to speak ill of your melons. Biyu stood tall and bellowed out a laugh.
Ho, ho, ho. All right, let's get moving.
The door swung open, and the real Cao Shi stepped out.
What is all that noise? I'm trying to sleep.
He was drunk and irritable, woken by the shouting and a loud cart rolling down his hall. All present turned to the warlord, but Biyu took that as a grand opportunity to perfect her transformation. Now that she knew what he looked like, it wasn't half bad. Cheng was the first to turn and went wide-eyed at the second Cao Shi. The others turned and joined him in surprise and confusion.
What the hell are you all doing milling around my hall?
The bandit chief rumbled. The guards from the first chamber ran to investigate the disturbance and saw the two Cao Shi and an odd mix of others. "Oh, my lords?" one said with a nervous titter. "I see you met the trap inspector," said the other. "We weren't in his way, sir. Honest." The eunuch argued. "The what?" "He's the new cleaner for the treasure room." Cao Shi took a look and recognized Cheng as his new bride and pleasure slave.
Hey, wait a minute. Why does my wife have so many odd jobs? Don't I provide for you?
Biyu stepped forward and tried to explain, but forgot she was dressed like the warlord. The genuine article was quick to point and shout.
And who the hell are you?
I am, your twin brother, she said with conviction. The pause felt like an eternity. Everyone stood in fearful anticipation. The warlord's stare could melt steel, and his aura was crushing, but Cao Shi was drunk enough to believe it. He brought his long-lost sibling into a bone-powdering hug as he wept, clearly always wanting such a deep and fulfilling connection. To have a brother to trust and support him had overwhelmed the man. Cheng snuck off and took up the cart, doing his best to lug it out while the tearful reunion was taking place. If he lingered any longer, he would be a blubbering mess. Cao Shi felt emotions crack away at his cold black heart.
Brother, where were you? Why have we never met? I was told our mother died birthing me.
Oh, I came out first, and I was in prison. They released me for changing my ways. I'm good now. It's not too late for you, brother, said Biyu as she bonelessly squirmed free from the crushing hug. Choose a humble life as I have and find true freedom. The universe rewards action, and the karma of our lives echoes and all that. Oh, look, a man in need. She scampered over to aid Cheng in getting the cart moving. Cao Shi nodded along. An epiphany came to him that unshackled his heart and exorcised his violent nature. If his brother could be better, so could he. Goodness was its own reward. As the thief and his fox companion moved down the hall in a laborious rush, out came the dreadful wizard who had aided in killing the monks and corrupting this temple. His face was a skull, and his rich robes bellowed as he conjured terrible power.
You fools! Halt, and let true horror strike deep into your hearts, for 'tis the hour of your doom. My magic is beyond even the gods. You are no match. Bow in despair and wait. Hold on, my terrible power. Ah!
Unfortunately for him, it took a long time to get that sort of thing going, and that cart wasn't slowing down. Usually folks were in such awe that they froze with terror. This was not the case, and so the mighty wizard was run down and trampled by the pair and their 1-ton Buddha. Cheng and Biyu built into a sprint and didn't stop until they crossed into the next town over. It was with a ragged breath that the fox spirit bragged. How was that? Still doubt me? I got us out of there no old problem. Cheng sat down to rest. You sure did. Good work. It's only a few days' travel to my house. Let's catch our breath and lay low for a while before I can get this thing to the buyer. Ha! Said Biyu. My debt is paid. Have fun lugging that thing over by yourself. You still owe me 3 favors, you tramp, said Cheng smugly. Don't try to get out of it. The idiot can't even count. I pulled the lever, I turned into the supervisor, and got you out. That's 3, and with that, I'm free. You did all that on your own, Cheng insisted. I just let you prove you weren't completely incompetent. But you just stared off into the distance, going over the series of events. They hadn't exactly put it all in writing. She made a break for it, running away from the thief and her responsibilities as fast as her legs could take her. But Cheng was right. She had promised and was bound to the thief until her debt was paid. The fox spirit was pulled back, kicking and screaming, by an unseen force. She threw a tantrum on the dirty ground. Cheng was squat down, watching the whole thing with apathy. Are you done? Biyu was flat on her face. She was indeed done. I've waited so long to be free, and yet I'm still trapped. Worst of all, I was outsmarted by a fool. Don't feel too bad, said Cheng. I'm not a cruel master. So let's get back to pulling that cart. It was a long walk back home, but it would all be worth it to see her again. Biyu struggled to keep up as they neared their destination, for Cheng was driving them forward with a zeal unmatched by any holy man or political agents. He dropped the cart at the door and almost left the fox spirit to roll back down the hill with the treasure they had toiled to bring thus far. Cheng crawled on his hands and knees to the door and found his beloved practicing her calligraphy with her cats, dog, the goat she convinced him to get, what seemed to be a pack of wolves, and some random deer who wandered in. Oh, hello, she said. Hello, dear. How are you? He wheezed. She scrunched her face, unsure of how to answer. I'm okay. When did you get back? You're all sweaty, said Bai Mei. Her gaze went back and forth between Cheng and her work. She couldn't help but smirk and sneak glances. The thief was exhausted, but felt spiritually rejuvenated in her presence. He smiled too much, and it made her self-conscious. What? She asked. Oh, nothing, he answered. Just thinking. This would change things, he thought to himself. This would open her heart. The maiden was unnerved by how intensely he stared, and so employed her tried and true method of regulation, avoidance, and burying the feeling. Bai Mei grimaced in thought. She held up her work for him to look over. Does this look right? Cheng nodded his head. Dear, it's lovely, but you must let it dry before waving it around. Bai looked at the streaks of ink and grimaced. Ugh. What did it say? He asked. Nothing, was her poorly veiled lie. Next time, dear, he said, still on the floor. He remembered when she first tried to make dumplings and was so nervous that she made herself sick. It took hours to talk her down, but seeing her relief when they turned out perfect was worth it. You never got to try them, but it was never about that. I already ate, but you can make dinner for yourself if you like. Are you going to bathe first? Bai asked as she stood to go. Of course, sweetheart. I'll get right on it, said Cheng. But what did you eat? She didn't answer. It was likely a combination of snacks and nothing substantial. Biyu was by the cart in her fox form, laid out flat. Bai stepped over the thief and ran to her with raw excitement. Aw, puppy! We must keep it. It can have your room, she said before picking it up and taking it into the house to join her menagerie, again leaving the thief to his devices. Cheng was too tired to move. If he could, he would have followed her around like a lovesick puppy and done any song and dance to get a sliver of her attention. Since he was incapacitated, he thought over the minor interaction and every word he had ever shared with his love. His second-guessing and overblowing minute details left him an anxious wreck. He had recovered before nightfall and dragged himself over to find Bai snugged up with Biyu as if they had known each other for years and had been through thick and thin. He knew his dear, love of his life, the light in his day, wouldn't eat dinner and make every excuse not to bathe. Her argument that she had not done much during the day and did not need to was never enough to convince him. His night would be trying to get her to do what she ought to do by way of comforting words and passive-aggressive mothering. He got to making dinner, which was easy enough since his beloved would eat the same rotation of things every day. Bu stayed in her fox form and was uncharacteristically quiet, while Bai pet her and shared the snacks she was eating to spoil her appetite further. "Dear, not at the table. You'll get fur in the food that you should be eating and not feeding to your new friend," said Cheng. Bai just put on a cutesy voice and kept on going. "But she's so precious and adorable. Look at her. She can't feed herself." Bu gave the smuggest look as she got chin scratches. "Well, how have you been since I was away?" asked Chen, trying not to be jealous as he chopped onions. "Fine." "Lovely. And your work?" "Good." "Did you take care of your butterfly bush?" "Yeah." "Did you visit your family?" "Yeah." "Did you miss me?" "Okay." That wasn't even an answer. They had a sort of game. If he caught her repeating herself 3 times, he won. What exactly he won wasn't important, but Bai refused to ever let him win anything. Cheng changed his tactic. What? Any gossip?" That got her going. Cheng knew it would. Bai talked for a good 10 minutes. He loved to listen to her, so he manipulated the conversation in a way that would get her to recount more of the tales she had heard during his time away, or something from her studies, or any old stories. Whatever, really. The thief had to take what he could get. Bai would change like the tides, demand his presence one day and be distant the next. Perhaps he rushed into unsteady waters too boldly, but Bai rarely let him know when she was too overwhelmed to talk. He could survive distance, but feared this connection was a fire he'd need tend or risk its dying end. With his absence, the return of cold winds. One did not return to the darkness willingly after feeling the radiance and heat of the flame. The hope was that distance would give her space to grow and bring fondness, though it seemed the dynamic hadn't changed. Cheng could talk for hours, but even he would get tired of starting conversations. It was getting late. He got up and got the bath ready. She was in and out and went to go about tending to her plants before he even got there. Bu the fox was lounging in the water with a towel on her forehead. "She is so precious. I love her," she gushed as the thief entered. "I know. I love her as well, more than I can bear," said Cheng. "She's too good for you," Bu teased. "I know," said Cheng mournfully. The fox demon pitied the man then. It had been a joke, but he believed it. Bai Mei was a gentle soul and kind heart, but not something that made kingdoms fall or wars start. But Cheng believed it wholeheartedly. She saw it on his face. He had put her on a pedestal so high that even he couldn't reach it. Cheng saw beauty few would take the time to see truly. She knew why he took the risks now. If he were rich and were some grand adventurer, then maybe he would feel worthy of her. If he were larger than life, maybe he would know she loved him. And in that pursuit, he lost himself. "She never said it, did she?" asked Bu. "No, she never did," he answered. "Never said a word. I should know it, but I'm not sure and it kills me. I fear to express the depths of my own love and fear that it will send her running. I wish to say it every night before bed, and with every new sunrise, but instead, I hold it in. Every goodbye is torture. What if it's the last? Does she love me? Does she care? Does she hate me? Is she using me? Am I not even worth that much consideration? Each is a truth when she pulls away, and all I know for sure is that she's gone. I need to have her know she's loved, to see me as someone she can trust and feel safe with, to feel protected, to be someone who lets her relax and never feel overwhelmed." "You can't," Bu said. "She has to find that herself. You can't give her what she can't accept or force something she isn't ready for. I don't know if she loves you, but I don't think she's in a place to know herself. You drown her with what doesn't fit in her cup, and you are left to your thirst. I see that you will give until there is nothing left of you. That won't serve either of you, only worsen the disparity." Cheng felt a spike of anger, but could not bring himself to say a bad word about her. It was just an arranged marriage. It wasn't destiny. I don't have to love her, but I do. And that's what makes my failure so much worse. You saw him in a different light. You are enough. This burden is not love but torture, and you are doing it to yourself. She never asked you to carry that weight. But then who will? I feel like a monk sometimes, having to let the universe pass over me like a crushing tide again and again. I'm tired of losing things. I try so hard to understand, to be open, to forgive, to find what fault I have in what transpires. But it is too much. I never wanted a wife. I never wanted connections or to care for another. But now I need it like a root needs water. It would be easier if I hated her, if she hated me. If she said she only would love a rich man or a strong man or a handsome man, then I could leave her in a heartbeat. But she says nothing. I see signs of something beautiful, something heavenly. But I feel I'm tending a garden not meant for me, pouring my soul into barren soil. Her roots will not drink what I offer. Is it poison? Does she not trust it? There's nothing you can do, said B.U. But taking the blame for what isn't your fault is not the answer. She has her own agency and can make her own choices. You are not her keeper, nor her only chance at peace and contentment. Cheng started to cry. Do you know what she said to me before I left? That she was starting to not see her future with me. What does that mean? That I give up or try harder? I begged to know why, and she said she didn't know. She just didn't see it. The fox had known lifetimes and had seen this story play out before. No one was wrong, but sometimes love doesn't bloom. Sometimes one side can't or won't reach out. Maybe it was just the wrong time, the wrong circumstance, or just not meant to be. B.U. didn't know what to say. She slinked away. Cheng felt like a dog, so desperate and willing to live on scraps. If she only said there was hope, he would never falter. But he is not granted that peace. Every fortune-teller and medium had told him that fate is turning, and none may know what it holds. But why? If he knew, things would be different. If they dashed hope against the rocks, he could live without this torment. His faith in her kept him trapped. He saw the inner light she held and believed in her so strongly. Life would be hard, struggles and hardships would come, and he knew they could face them together. But one could not pull someone towards a future if they do not reach out. Cheng had charted every course in his heart, but she was never there to join him for the first step, and he was too blind to see it. It's all for naught if she doesn't share his faith. But Bai Mei had said it plainly. She didn't see it. What sort of grand fool was he to be so blind? His love came so effortlessly once the roots found a hint of pure water. Yet so little sun found him. He felt the need to endure, but felt pitiful. The thief rose from the bath and walked out. He would normally talk to Bai about these struggles. She was so very understanding and able to soothe him. But now he felt he had said too much, been laid bare for so long that he wasn't sure there was more than cold while she stayed in her tower. He felt terrible that he could not do the same for her, but he couldn't make her. She had told him less and less as time went on, and he feared that soon it would only be silence. Cheng dressed and stepped into the hall to find Bai where she always was at this time. She was sitting by the window with her pets, staring out at the moon. "It is time to sleep, dearest," said Cheng. "Ugh, but I'm not tired, and the fox can talk," Bai complained, petting her new furry friend to distract herself. "But you will be, and I'm going to be hearing about it tomorrow," said Cheng before going into a mocking tone. "Boo-hoo, I'm so tired and I have so much to do." Bai chuckled and groaned. She knew he was right, but hated to admit it. "Don't be a contrarian. Go to bed," said Cheng. She walked off to hide her plants, so the cats wouldn't nibble on them in the night. The thief again overthought the interaction. It was only a matter of time. He'd find her huddled in the corner of her bedding, bullied to the edge by her pets, who she allowed to run roughshod over her. Bai wouldn't let him move any of the furry freeloaders to give her more space, but despite her complaints, she wouldn't have it any other way. Cheng laid out his bedroll near enough to hers. He was used to late nights sneaking into places and lying low until it was time to make his moves as of late. But he went down to rest all the same. Sleep wouldn't come to him for some time. She liked hearing his voice on occasion. She said it was soothing. It was one of the few compliments she ever gave him, so he was happy to talk until it was absolutely necessary for the maiden to shut her eyes and rest. He would say good night again and again, after spurts of conversation, until she drifted off. Tonight was one of those times she would let him talk and give the token word to keep him going when he paused. He kept it going as long as he dared, for it felt so precious. The day came, and the thief was shaken awake after only a few hours of shut-eye. "You have to wake up earlier when you're here in case I get bored," said Bai. Cheng felt cooked after being abruptly woken up in the middle of his sleep cycle. "Of course, dear. I'll be sure to do that." She hadn't done that in a long time. It was happening less frequently, and he knew it. It was time for Bai's trip to the shrine. She would complain about not wanting to go, but would, and in the end be glad for it. "Ready to go, dear?" he asked. "I am, but I don't want to go," she answered. "You know you're going. I don't have to convince you. Have fun," said Cheng. It was good to know she kept up her duties, but she never invited him along. Biyu was allowed to go for whatever reason, but it was important to have friends. The thief assumed his beloved was just anxious to have him see her work, but truly, he never knew why. Cheng tried to sleep, but just laid there. He felt a terrible fear bubble up within him. He trusted her and thought the best of her, but felt he was lacking. Like a thief, he wanted every bit he could get, willing to settle for hints, but longing to hold her close forever. Was it wrong to want more? Could she even give what he was asking? The idea that she only spared time for him out of kindness haunted him. It was a flawed argument. They would talk for hours, and no one was that nice. Though the cyclical thoughts persisted, digging deeper every time he brushed them aside, returning with evidence twisted to further feed his insecurity. She didn't need him. He loved her for that, though his own faith was waning. Why would she bother keeping him around? He felt weak for not being able to bear it. If only he were stronger. The idea of abandoning her never crossed his mind, but to have her fear its happening was a sin he bore all the same. His lament was interrupted, but there was no moment of relief. Biyu burst into the room almost violently. She was frightened and overwhelmed. It took her a moment to find the courage to speak. "It's Bai. She collapsed at the shrine." Cheng shot up and grabbed the fox spirit by the shoulders, violently shaking her about. "What happened? Is anyone helping her?" The priest, but he doesn't know what to do," she answered frantically. Cheng tossed her out of his way and ran out. He borrowed a horse halfway down the road and arrived with a medicine woman, a shaman, and a scholar all squished in on the stolen mount. He arrived at the shrine and rushed around, searching every room until he found her in bed. She was curled up in a ball under the blankets. Cheng knew better than to run up to embrace her, no matter how much he wished to. However, the fool proved to be ever the micromanager, fighting back thoughts on what she should do. How best to lie down and suffer from some unknown ailment, what herbs and such may soothe her. The priest was an old man and moved slowly, entering the room with a hobbled step. He spoke softly. "She has been suffering like this for quite some time. It rarely keeps her from her duties, and I have seen her struggle through long days admirably. This is the first time she has been overcome by it." "She spoke of such pain years ago, but stopped bringing it up," said Cheng. I would ask her every day if she was all right and visited every healer in the land looking for a remedy. Why would she hide it from me? I cannot say you do not care, but are your efforts for her or to ease your own pain? What do you mean? I can't have her suffer, not for a moment if I can do something about it, Cheng argued. You can't, said the priest. There is nothing you can do to shield someone from discomfort or tragedy. Fate will move along as the heavens will it, just as your brother died in his war and your grandmother lost herself in the end. Just as despair and sickness took so many loved ones from you. There is nothing you can do. I can make her happy, Cheng harshly spoke. I can protect her. You may facilitate happiness and bring the illusion of safety, but the ills of the world and the course of destiny are beyond any of us. Her balance and harmony are her own, and not for you to govern. Beyond that, what if she does not want your help? Cheng did not take that well. How dare you? I have to save her. Save? She does not need a hero. She is not in need of rescue and does not face a beast that can be slain by the likes of you. It is not something you can fight for her. You must accept what is outside of your control. Patience, temperance, and strength. Strength that is gentle, not a pressure or demand, but acceptance and openness. Patience, not expectation. Temperance that is a honed blade that does not break. So I sit and let everything crumble, not worry about things and let go of every attachment like the Buddha himself. The thief spat. The priest stopped him before he could rant. In a sense, but you misunderstand. What realm do you rule? Are you the king of heaven? Cheng was losing patience and refused to answer. Then why worry about his domain? Asked the priest. You do not control the winds and the seasons, nor the sun and water. Your hand is not what turns the wheel of fate. Bai can benefit from your support, but don't burden her with your fears, or use her to indulge your fantasy. What fantasy? Am I wrong to have hope? He demanded an answer. It is if you drown in it. Your efforts are not in vain, but love is not rewarded for victory, or because you believe you deserve it. Kindness is not a means to an end. You are not owed her love, and you cannot be given what she doesn't have to give, or choose not to give. The flower may bloom into a thing of beauty, but it does not always bloom, and you will gain nothing from overtending it, watching the dirt as you neglect your own needs. Do you fear you will miss the blossoming if you turn away to tend to yourself? The thief walked out. He gave the healers whom he had basically kidnapped what money he had brought and went off to find an answer. Biyu had tracked him down, finding him sitting in the dirt days later, paralyzed by circumstance and feeling helpless. The fox spoke sternly. Why are you not with her? She will not have me, and I can't let her see me cry again. She doesn't love me now, and certainly wouldn't love me in such weakness. I must be strong for her, but I can't do that as I am. The shame is too great, he said. They can't help her. I failed, and she suffers. Her pain is already mine in spirit. I wish I could take every bit of it, endure her discomfort, bear her every torment and affliction. I know the fear and burdens of the past that cripple her. I would take them, so she could be the heavenly creature I know her to be, unbound and open. I need her to be at peace and find contentment. The fox was clever, bearing wisdom from centuries of lessons. Her offer was a whisper. I know a way. It will take a toll, but you will take her pain. Tell me, Cheng demanded. As you say, she said. Go to the high mountain, where the moon lies to sleep. Pick the flowers there and brew tea from the roots. Then You will have your wish." "Thank you, Biyu," said Cheng with tears in his eyes. "Whatever debt you owe me is paid. Go, my friend. You are no fiend or demon, but a just spirit." The thief made the journey, traveling for days onto weeks until he found where the full moon rests. He picked the flowers and brought the brew to a boil. He drank deeply and felt the beautiful pain. He wept tears of joy as he fell to his knees and clutched his stomach. He could bear it, just as she had, but there was joy within him, for Bai suffered no longer. Cheng moved down the hill in self-righteous agony. He got to his horse and felt something he did not expect: sadness and loneliness. It came like a sudden rain, and the melancholy seeped into his every pore. He felt so guilty about not being able to give what was needed. There was a sense of unworthiness, of not being enough, and fear of sharing the depths of affection never truly understood. He was scared to face it, as if the truth of those feelings would overwhelm him, and it was better to run, to bury the love, than let it consume him. What is this? The anxiety was worse than the pain. He could not fathom where it arose, but it strangled both thought and the will to continue. Hopelessness stayed his feet. What was the point? Why go on? There was no fortune to be had. Death comes for all. What is green will rot. What was strong crumbles away to dust. He was better burdening no one and alone than failing others and suffering their expectations. Every plan would fail, and everyone would abandon him, because that was the way of the world. Cheng could feel the isolation that Bai struggled with, how her self-reliance was a way to protect herself. To be an island with no bridges saved her from heartache and discomfort. Her walls prevented her from knowing and being known. There was no mirrors hanging in her keep. He was just like her, but opened himself in the vain hope she would grow with him. Then came the sinking despair. How could anyone love him? He would only let everyone down. It was better not to try. It was safer to stay hidden away. Other people were too much to deal with, and connections were too much effort to maintain. He couldn't be bothered. The thief knew these feelings well. But this new level of empathy was intimate. What he had assumed was now bared to him fully. The pain in his gut was incessant, a radiating ache. Cheng needed to get home. The thief had taken her fears, taken her suffering, but each step brought dread. What if she were dead? Traveling with the thought was a hell he never considered. She is safe at home, he told himself, but it was different. This worry was hers as well. Every adventure he went out on, every job, she thought of him but suppressed it. He turned it into a plague of anxious thoughts and rumination. The loneliness was what he left for her as he went out skulking for treasures. She wondered why he was out gallivanting and not where she needed him. He didn't do it for her, but to feed his own insecurities. Cheng felt like a fool. The prestige he strove for to feel worthy of her was for naught. The gold he accumulated to give her the life he thought she deserved was for his own pride. She was self-sufficient, self-reliant, and was bothered by the idea of needing him. Needing him was his idea of security. To be of use, to have utility, made him comfortable in service. It was how he showed love, and that dissonance had loosened the foundational stones of their relationship. Her indifference to his efforts and attempts at boasting was because the hollow acts were performative. Bai had thought well of him without his constant song and dance. Cheng wasn't himself when he was entertaining, but an exaggerated caricature that only made him more of a stranger. How did she feel about him now that he had chipped away at himself until broken? As he neared her home, the final blow was dealt. The torture had ended. The agony was lifted. That could only mean she had no more pain to give. What was left was only grief. Cheng lived a life fraught with peril upon his self-banishment, and every risk had the potential to end him. It was only a matter of time before he didn't come home. A funny thought came despite the gloom. Bai had him promise he'd let her die first, so she would never have to mourn him. This was the last suffering he could spare her, but the only way he could know of it was via her death. As he took her pain, she took his coming end. It was the only way for Cheng to understand what he would inflict upon her one day. Fates had changed. With her death, he experienced the loss that he had promised to spare her. The thief entered the home with the last of his strength. He fell to his knees before her empty bedroll. "She's gone," he said in a hollow voice. "So eager to bear my beloved's pain, yet I left her to go through her final moments alone. I should have been there, at the very least. Instead, I was away." Like always, it was Biyu standing in the corner of the room, dressed in funeral garb. You don't have to be there for her every waking hour. That wasn't the lesson. You can't just keep chasing the sunset, having faith that it will return if and when it ought to. The two of you could have kept this dance going forever. Cheng laid on the cold floor as she once had when overwhelmed. Overcome by it all, he wept brokenly. He would have done so happily. The sun lifts the night, but the brighter its light, the deeper its shadow. The darkness consumes the heat of the waning fire and knows its greatest wanting before it rises again. I pity you for burning yourself away, when all you need do is settle in the cold embrace until love builds heat enough to warm, but not consume. I wasn't strong enough, Cheng lamented. You were stronger than most, Biyu said with soothing promise. The two of you were equally responsible. It was just love at the wrong time, between two hearts who were unprepared for the rigors of connection. It was deep and true, but not enough to best the fears and anxious nature of innocent souls. If I had only known, he cried, I would have done whatever it took to make it work. I wish her the peace and death that I could never bring her in life. You are a good man, and you have not a harsh thought for her, but it was never your place to save her, only yourself. You seat her in the Jade Palace as the Queen of Heaven, but that was never the reality of it. Her battles were her own to fight, and you ignored yours. You allowed your own foundation to crack, beams to rot, and seeds of fear to grow and overtake everything. I can tell you, fixing her wouldn't mend the parts of you that bring guilt. You did not latch onto her in desperation or to alleviate loneliness, but you held her up as a goddess to worship and not a woman to love. All your hope was poured into a cup that could not keep it, when it was yours to hold. What does it matter? It's over, said Cheng, knowing he would torture himself with rumination for the rest of his days. She's gone. Where have I gone? Asked Bai. Cheng couldn't stop crying. You're alive. I thought you were dead, and then the fox was talking down to me and my stomach hurt because of some tea. It was mostly sobbing and unintelligible from there. Bai didn't know what was wrong and was tearing up. Why are you crying? You know how I get when people cry. What's wrong? Cheng was still blithering and needed to blow his nose. I thought you were dead. Where were you? I was in the bathroom, she answered. Where were you? I was on a quest and I thought you were gone, and now I know you're not, and I'm happy, but I'm still sad. He was blubbering. A quest, said Bai. Why? I thought you were sick and dying, he answered. I felt like it, but no. It was just cramps. It happens every month for a week. The wheels were turning in his head. Biyu was the obvious culprit and took her fox form to flee. The thief was quick and tackled her to the floor before she could make for the window. You did this, didn't you? Explain, he demanded, holding her in a headlock. You needed to get over yourself, she shrieked as the thief put some pressure. You needed to learn to let go. She isn't ready for you yet, and you were getting frustrated. The expectations were killing her and making you into something worse. She can't comprehend her feelings yet, and you need to control yours. The facts are, she may never or not come to the conclusion you hoped for. Cheng let up, and Biyu ran to Bai's arms for comfort. He understood now. Letting go wasn't abandoning or forgetting what it meant, but allowing things to take their due course. Plants have needs to grow, but too much sun will have them wilt, and too much water will drown them. A fire would be smothered by the wounded hand that tries to hold it, but give warmth to who tends it from afar. What? asked Bai. "You're being weird today." "Nothing, dear," said Cheng with a smile. "I think I'm going to take up farming, and this place needs to be cleaned up more regularly." "So are you going to stay?" she asked. "If you want me to, yes," he answered. It would be a long road, better traveled slowly and carefully. But he saw hope now for a brighter future, and the mountain tops he wished to climb for himself. Perhaps she would join him with a little luck, but he would have to be a whole person on his own, grow for his sake. He had realized it and felt the energies of his body leaning towards balance once again, as they hadn't for many a year. He played the part of the selfless, and his willingness to accept her wholly was not a lie. He loved her as she was, but accepted her idealized self as truth at his expense. Cheng held her at the standard of her potential, and that left him frustrated with his own over-accommodating. That initial safety became guilt for her, anxiety, and the fear of burdening others, all things he had hoped to save her from. The thief had stolen not just the golden visage of the Buddha, but his openness. Cheng's understanding was just a pale imitation. He too dearly clung to it, and it was to his detriment. His play at heavenly insight was not done in malice, but created pain all the same. He would have to strive for it with open eyes this time. And so the thief changed vocation. He learned the limits of his control and found freedom from the self-imposed pressures he had struggled beneath. Thanks to the lessons learned, Cheng let go of expectations and simply reaped what he sowed, with kindness and humility. He spoke his heart with a quiet strength, and let the currents rise and fall. He no longer fought them, but learned to fill what space was allowed, and rest like the silent foundation of stone that holds the palace stable. The great warlord Cao Shi restored the grand temple, and was true to his word of pacifism. He knew not where his long-lost brother had gone, but he had faith that he continued to do good. The golden Buddha was brought to the temple. The beautiful Bai Mei continued her journey toward peace and contentment. Her efforts were supported, and she found the hidden strength within her. No longer did she fear feeling fully, and her bravery was rewarded. Clarity came to her, and that steady heart was expressed openly. That wily fox spirit was free from her prison, but found mischief with a purpose suited her well. She would return to visit the two often, but was ever in search of wisdom to better mend the wounds of others and expand her powers. Cheng felt the seasons pass and the wheel of fate turn. He no longer lived in grief and scarcity. What soothed his mind was not over-analysis, nor was an iron grip what kept what he loved close, but an open hand and the clarity to see things as they were and not be caught in the illusion of fantasy. There was no need to label the connection. It was what it was. His love did not require proving or risk wilting. It was his to hold without guilt or need. As long as she was all right, love was enough. He could wish her the best with no regrets. He was no Buddha, but he tried his best. And what else could you do? The end.